vice chair are unavailable tonight, so as clerk, I will be chairing.
Recording in progress.
I'll be chairing the meeting. So welcome, and I will call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. The meeting of the WSESD will come to order. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public body is meeting remotely, and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. Please note that while we strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it is important to note that the open meeting law only ensures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. If a member of the public or of the public body has technical difficulties accessing this meeting remotely, please alert us by email. In the event of a technical difficulty that cannot be resolved, we may continue the meeting if necessary. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call vote in accordance with the law. And so the first order of business is the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
can I make a motion to add to the agenda under new business, a request to introduce a topic to be on the agenda for our next regularly scheduled meeting on October 11th.
could you repeat that motion, please?
Yep, so the motion is to add to the agenda under new business, a request to introduce a topic to be on the agenda for our next regularly scheduled meeting on October 11th.
You, the board has heard the motion. Is there a second?
Okay.
And is there discussion? The board recommends.
What is the motion, Tim? What specifically is it about?
That's my question. Yes, what is,
Could you,
Well, the motion is to request that we put something on the agenda.
and could you say what that is?
Do you want me to just? Okay, I don't think that's the right way.
Could you be more specific about? what
I'm
the-
requesting to introduce the topic being, let's see, I was going to explain why I would be off. Let me go. The topic would be, it'd be concerns relating to our code of ethics. So I'd like to introduce, like the opportunity to request that our next agenda have the topic for concerns related to code of ethics.
Okay. Any discussion? And so all in favor of adding Michelle's motion, Michelle's topic to unfinished business, say aye.
I,
Opposed? Say nay. So the motion passed and that will be added to unfinished business. Okay, moving on. The consent agenda, is there a motion to approve the minutes of September 13th and September 22nd?
so moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, John and Michelle. Next, we move to,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I didn't catch the vote on that motion.
Oh, thank you,
You're welcome.
Wendy. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed?
You know, I actually have to abstain. I just realized the dates and I didn't get a chance to read them myself, so I'll abstain from that.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Tim, I also need to abstain, at least from September 13th.
Okay, so because of the abstentions, we'll have to take a roll call. Lana,
Aye.
Emily, is she on?
Emily is not on that I can see.
Deborah,
I,
Sean,
yes, I,
Michelle,
Let's see.
Ann,
I must abstain from September 13th. I can approve September 22nd. So abstain and aye.
And Liz Adams.
Aye.
So we have 4 ayes and 2 abstentions. Is that correct, Madam Note Taker?
If you want my professional opinion, Ms. Beekman's vote is hard for me to record because it sounds like a partial vote. I'm not the expert here.
Oh,
I would
you.
amend the motion and do the minutes separately. Again, totally your call. I just take the minutes.
Okay, and did you repeat your vote?
I abstain from September 13th. I can
Okay.
say aye to September 22nd. So Wendy's right. If you separate the votes, I
Okay,
can vote on one, but not the other.
okay, so let's do this again. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of September 13th?
So moved.
Second? Seconded by Sean, thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes of September 13th, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so the minutes of September 13th are approved. Moving on to September 22nd, the minutes of September 22nd. Is there a motion to approve?
Oh,
Second?
second.
Thank you, Sean and Deborah. All in favor of approving the minutes of September 22nd? We'll do it by roll call. Lana,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Michelle,
Abstain, thank you.
Ann Beekman,
Aye. Aye.
and Liz Adams.
Aye.
So the minutes of September 22nd are approved with 5 ayes, 1 abstention.
I don't know if Emily is now on.
Okay,
After the vote.
okay, fine. So with that, we will move on to the public comment portion of the meeting. Anyone making a comment, the public comment portion of the meeting will be for 10 minutes. And anyone making a comment can expect a response that falls into one of the following categories. A, receive an acknowledgement of the content with no further action taken. B, receive an immediate response by the board chair or administration. C, administration would be directed to contact and respond to the person. D, clarification sought from the administration for a specified meeting. E, the topic would be added to a specified future board agenda. F, the matter would be referred to an executive session, or a public hearing would be held on the matter. That being said, we have 10 minutes for the public discussion. Please hold your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Murphy, you'll be timing.
That is correct.
Thank you. And I reckon that the board, yes. Paul?
Just
Okay.
indicating when hands are up.
The chair recognizes Jackie Reynolds.
Thanks, Tim. I have a question about the minutes of August 9th, but I have to give a little background information, but I'll keep it within my minutes. So on the August 23rd meeting, during the approval of the minutes of August 9th, Tim, you seconded and said you had an amendment, and at the same exact time, Michelle raised her hand and she was not acknowledged. I bring it up because it felt like bullying and it continues to feel that way. I'll go on. Then Michelle stated that she also had an amendment and she was ignored. And then during the approval of Tim's motion, Michelle once again said she had a motion. And then everybody immediately told Michelle she was out of order and they had just approved the minutes. And the motion approved, and Michelle was still not acknowledged, even though at the same time as Tim, she said she had an amendment. I'd love to know what the amendment is. I still don't know. And then the next thing is that Kelly told Michelle to email her the amendment, and Michelle stated that she had already emailed it to Kelly and Tim. I was going to ask Kelly what it was about, or Tim, perhaps you know. That's one question. And then Kelly stated that she'd make a note and add it to the next meeting agenda. And then the agenda for pardon me, September 13th, came out and said nothing about approving the minutes of August 9th. So even though Kelly said she was gonna add them, they weren't added, and we still don't know what Michelle wanted to add. Then at the actual meeting of September 13th, Kelly handed the meeting over to David, who said, we are going to postpone the amendments to the minutes of 8:23 and 9:27 in order to further research what must be included in publishment under Robert's rules, actually to clarify whether ours are actually published minutes. I found that very confusing. After 2 years on the board, I had no idea what that means. So I wanted to ask David, but still no mention of the August 9th minutes that Michelle was trying to amend. And if you watch the August 9th meeting, which I did several times to make sure what I was saying is correct, the meeting minutes do not match what is actually happening during the meeting. And I am certain that that is not the fault of Wendy Levy, the world's greatest board reporter. So I'd love to know what could have happened. And, you know, it's like a month and a half away. It feels like Michelle was bullied, that you were trying to silence her collectively. And it also feels like you must be hiding something. Can we know what Michelle wanted to add to the minutes of August 9th, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Regarding what my amendment was, if you email me, I'll email you back on what that amendment was. I have to check the video myself.
Well, I know your amendment, because it's on the video. I'm talking about Michelle's amendment that she still had yet to be able to make.
Okay. Is there another comment? Thank you, Jackie.
There is from the Zoom land. Lisa Ford has a public.
The chair recognizes Lisa Ford.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I could get my picture going there. Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm from Guilford. I have a comment to make. I find it extremely hypocritical of our WSESU board representatives, David Scholes, Kelly Young, and Liz Adams, to be pushing our WSESU board chair at the last meeting to step down when they themselves have a very serious track record of violating code of ethics, undermining our superintendent, misusing executive sessions, withholding public information. If they are holding themselves to the same ethical standards as they're holding Michelle Green, then I have to ask myself, why are they not stepping down? Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And may I remind the public to confine your comments to WSED business. We are not the WSEU.
Those are our representatives that are on the WSESD board. So it is WSESD business. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Then that concludes the public comment part of the meeting. And we'll move on to unfinished business, the sexual abuse investigation update. Superintendent Spino recently sent out a blurb to all families. Superintendent Spino, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, a couple hours ago, I sent an update to the community, essentially stating the trainings that have been taking place this first month of the school year, the resources we've been engaged with. I highlighted the board press release, which was released, I think it was beginning of September. And then highlighted the fact that as we move forward, looking forward to highlighting the work of our children of the school district and the initiatives that we're starting this year. So essentially pretty brief, to the point. Email was sent with that type of an update.
Thank you, Mark. And moving on, we'll go to part B of unfinished business, the policy and amendment
Excuse
committee.
me, could I ask a
There is a
question?
hand up. Mindy has a hand up.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Board recognizes Mindy Haskin-Rogers.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Tim. I just wanted to ask Mark Spino if any progress has been made. I heard Ben say last time that there are students who possibly have something that they want to report and are fearful and want a confidential route to report inappropriate behavior so that they won't fear retaliation. And I'm wondering if any progress has been made on working with the students. I'm glad to hear that you sent the information about the investigation to the caregivers, but it seemed like the students themselves want information. And also looking at this, I mean, Attorney Goddard is maybe a current option, but that doesn't look like a long-term solution for students to have actually an outlet to report things. And I think what's really, really important is that when and if a student tries to report something they're uncomfortable with, that it not only be a confidential route to reporting, but also that the people who are receiving the reports are really skillful and know how to receive them in a way that doesn't cause more harm. So I'm wondering if anything has happened, because frankly, if there's even one kid right now who's afraid to report something that sounds urgent, and I'm just wondering what has happened in the meantime. It sounded like Noah said, you know, their emails are a great way to reach them. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question, Mindy, and we absolutely are making progress towards that. There is a Act 1 presentation tonight from BUHS. I think we may touch upon that a little bit.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna talk about that and how how we create a safe space for those conversations to be had in an intimate and trauma-informed way, because I think that's very important. Yeah.
But we're still involved in the process of developing that as well. But very much do understand the need to do that.
And I'll just add the urgency of it. I mean, if there are students currently afraid to report something, then that sounds like something that has to be addressed without delay. But thank you.
Thank you, Mindy. Thank you, Mark. Are there any other discussion? Kaya.
I just want to bring up at the Student Advisory Committee meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago, which is Ben and I are working with other students that are also sort of representatives on that committee. During the meeting, we brought up the sexual abuse investigation, and it was kind of overwhelming to see that some of the students who are pretty involved in the school didn't even know about it. They had never heard about it. So I feel like it's something to bring up, that maybe we should be reaching directly to the students more. And it's good to reach out to the caregivers, but I feel like we need to have these sort of intimate conversations talking about it with the students, like within class or within school or presentation or something like that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kaya. Any other comments? Okay, so we will move on with the agenda to policy and the amendment committee. Deborah Stanford, I believe you have some updates.
Yes, the policy C7, board relations with the administrators, was presented for a first reading on September 13th, 2022 at this board meeting. It is now past the 10-day warning period. And I move that the WSESD board readopt C7, board relations with the administrators.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved.
Is there a discussion?
A question,
And this is Michelle Green.
with that, that when I went to go look at these, it's been really nice to see the color coded changes. And then just recently, it seems like they're not doing that anymore on the website. It was the immediate link. So so I wasn't able to identify what changes had been made. Maybe they were very insignificant or none. I'm not sure. But I'm just wondering if you had any information or if you knew of, was anything substantial that substantially changed? I just don't remember when you first introduced it, and I looked at it when I went to review tonight. I was surprised the whole page was black, so I couldn't figure out what had changed.
Are you talking specifically about C7?
Yeah.
Board relations with the administrators?
Yeah.
And on the website, the entire page is blacked out?
Yeah, like it looks like a normal document, so I
I
can't see
see.
if there's
Okay.
any changes.
All right.
It's very helpful to see, to be able to look.
Okay. In response to your email that you wrote to me last night,
That was-
I did ask that, I did refer you to Barb to ask for clarification of that.
I did on that one. And then today, when I went to go look at this one, I realized it was also like that, so I didn't get a chance to follow up with her.
Okay.
So I'm just
Okay.
curious if you recall.
Well, as I'm looking at it right now in front of me, the markings in red, there is a change from the word principals to administrators. And the third bullet down, the understanding that materials relating to agenda items requiring action should be provided to the board and posted no later than Thursday prior to a board meeting when agendas and minutes are distributed. The next bullet down is also in red.
Okay.
Yeah, and then number 3, item number 3, the sentence ends in October. Just clarifying when reports are going to be presented. All of this, I know Mark and Paul Smith were also involved in these discussions. And then item 4, that the superintendent will present criteria for evaluation of administrators and will. That's in red.
Okay. I think what happened I'm seeing now is it's reverted back to the original.
I see.
Which is why I'm totally thrown.
Well, okay,
Okay.
I
really should
As you're saying it, I was like, that's right, I read that. I just read it 10 days ago.
got it.
So.
Okay, so I am going to say, when I looked at the next item, the next policy, I did see it in red on the website earlier today.
Okay.
So again, this has to go to Barb to clarify how this is posted.
Ann's got her hand up.
Okay, Ann?
Okay,
Oh, sorry, sorry.
board recognizes Ann
It's okay.
Beekman.
You will find the corrections on the school board's agendas page, not on the policies page. That's where the corrected version with the red, and it's on agendas, not policies.
Thank you, Ann. Is there any other discussion?
Thank
Okay.
you, Anne. She's 100% right. I really appreciate that. Sorry to drag you guys all through that.
So, Ms. Stanford, could you repeat
So,
the motion?
so
please?
again, I move that the WSESD school board readopt C7, board relations with the administrators.
And that was seconded by
Lana.
Lana, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, and Emily and Liz? Did they weigh in?
Aye. That's Emily.
There's Emily.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to D7.
Yeah, and before I get to D7, I just want to review, as per some of Michelle's comments, the strikeouts on policies are VSBA deletions, and the Policy and Amendment Committee has accepted these changes. Bold equals VSB edits, which the Policy Committee has also accepted. Highlighted in blue indicates a decision by the Policy and Amendment Committee to retain wording that the Vermont School Board Association, the VSBA, says is unnecessary. And highlighted in red indicates Policy and Amendment Committee additions. So C7 was, I'm sorry, going to D7, which is titled Volunteers and Work Studies Students. When it was presented for a first reading on September 13th, this policy, the revised policy stated that volunteers transporting students to an off-site school event must undergo a full criminal background check, including being fingerprinted if they are driving a student alone in the car as the adult, unless they are accompanied by a school employee who by virtue of employment is fully vetted and has undergone a full background check, criminal background check. This resulted in a series of emails that the policy committee received expressing concern that there was a lack of a transition period and it would affect certain schools, especially the more rural sites. On September 21st, as the chair of this committee, I wrote an email to those people who had reached out to the committee. And I thank them for sending comments and concerns. We appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with you as we work to create a viable policy that enables all programs to continue and grow. We are committed to the educational opportunities that must exist for all students beyond what is offered within the traditional walls of a school. So much growth occurs on the playing fields and during the extracurricular activities of a given school. We must also acknowledge our responsibility to ensure the welfare and safety of all students within the WSESD school district. Based upon the comments and suggestions that we received, we have amended D7 to acknowledge your voices. The amended policy is posted on the website in the location reserved for agendas. That's the response, yes. So we thank you on behalf of the Policy and Amendment Committee. Going specifically to D7, the changes that have been made to it based upon community comments, those changes are found on the second page of the policy under Administrative Procedures, Code D7-P. And the paragraph that specifically relates to this, the revision, the amendment that we are proposing for a second reading as of today, reads as follows. Commencing on January 1st, 2023, transportation of students within a 20-mile radius of the school may be provided by a volunteer, provided that A, the volunteer has undergone a full Vermont Crime Investigation Center background check, or B, a second adult traveling in the vehicle has undergone the VCIC, which is the full Crime Investigation Center background check, i.e. a school employee who has been fully vetted. Transportation beyond the 20-mile radius must be provided via a contracted service. The sentence above that paragraph reads, the district, and this is not new to the policy, the district will pay the fees associated with criminal records checks. So the revised policy based upon community concerns includes a transition period between now and January 1st, 2023, with the understanding that by January 1st, if that volunteer is driving students alone in the car, that volunteer will have been fingerprinted and have gone through a full criminal background check. So I am presenting, as of today, D7, volunteers and work study students for a second reading, starting this evening If there are further concerns or suggestions, again, please send them to the policy committee.
Stuff on the floor.
Michelle?
Yeah, this one got flagged by me big time by my community when I first saw it at the first reading. It's very clearly has the best intentions of keeping our kids safe, and that's great. As a parent, when I found out that fingerprinting would be required for the families that are driving kids to field trips and after school sport, like my insides dropped. I'm sure a lot of people could identify with that. It's a really concerning hardship when we use our cars a lot. And I'm just wondering if the policy committee has, engaged families or leadership councils or gotten reports back from administrators on how they think it might affect their population. I'm thinking about times where grandma showed up to make a field trip happen and because it's like just an insurance thing. And I'm just concerned that this fingerprint policy, when we're talking about like parents that work as teams, like it takes a community to get the kids to soccer game, that we're gonna lose, like students are gonna lose enriching opportunities, or we're gonna be closing doors for family members who, to be in the school. And I don't know how many people volunteer outside of our family community. I think I have volunteered in a classroom and that seemed completely reasonable, but something about the driving piece, I can't even fathom another to do. And I think that it's going to be a hardship for a lot of families and something that we need to consider. And the other piece too, is just, I'm not sure where that 20-mile radius came in. And I don't know which schools might be impacted. If families are driving to Mount Snow, it might knock some areas out. So those are just my concerns and something that in my mind, I'd like to hear more from our administrators or hear from leadership councils before we were to make a decision, and if there's anything we could do to better accommodate the needs of our community.
Administration is interrogated? Okay.
Do we
I can start.
want to address this first?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Well, the intention of the policy is to protect volunteers who are with kids by themselves. That's the intention, and as well as to protect the children. 20-mile radius is to acknowledge local field trips and taking away, adding that ability to access a field trip without spending, $500 on a bus, whereas you're going from Putney Central to the Orchard. So those are the two rationales with those changes to include the 20-mile and can keep the background check in the policy, but also acknowledging that it was a quick turnaround when it was shared with the community, and we clearly couldn't accommodate that quick turnaround. Our sports seasons wouldn't have been able to take place at some of our schools in terms of traveling to away games. So that's where the balance is. That's where the policy committee landed essentially.
The chair recognizes Kelly Diaz.
Kelly, you're up.
Thank you. Hi, Kelly Dias, principal at Academy. I just wanted to share some thoughts I have about it. I know it's a kind of a tricky issue, and I largely agree with, obviously we want to protect our kids and we want to protect our drivers, our volunteers. And I just Google mapped Mount Snow from Academy School and it's 22 miles. So I'm wondering if perhaps we could build in some kind of just flexibility depending on a situation, because I've already been putting feelers out to the bus company regarding winter sports, and essentially they don't have the staff to run buses outside of their 9 to 2 window. They all have to be back to be at the bus yard. So any programming that goes later than that won't be able to happen with buses. And, we might be able to have some staff drive, but in order to do that, we would be exceeding the 20 miles by a couple of miles. So maybe just building in some sort of a clause, like if it's a really important part of our programming that we offer every year, for example, maybe we can just account for that. Thanks.
Okay, and this is why we have a second reading period to consider topics like that.
Liz
Liz Adams.
Yeah, our attorney didn't want us to have any exclusions. He wanted all the kids on the bus all the time. So we tried to come up with somewhere in between. In terms of what you say, Kelly, yeah, that could be an issue for winter sports. I know that Putney has traditionally had a bus for kids to go to Mount Snow. But if we're going to do that, I think maybe it should be on a case by case basis with, Mark making the decision. Okay, that's fine. You can do winter sports like that. Because I know Mark had tried to find more buses for us and couldn't. Like everybody else, they can't find drivers. So we're trying to come up with something that was reasonable, but covered us to make sure all the kids are safe.
The other thing I'll add is that this policy also reflects a financial commitment from the school board to support field trips and field trip requests. So this is not meant to hamper PTOs and doing more fundraising. This reflects showing that line item in our budgets and passing it at town meeting. So that the policy reflects the practice and the importance of enrichment opportunities for all kids and building background knowledge and getting out of the state of Vermont and bringing kids to engaging places to visit. So there is a financial commitment to this proposal.
Any other discussion?
Just say another two things. I just, I appreciate hearing more feedback. I would just say that thoughts that had come up were, is there things that we could do if this went into effect, like beginning of the school fingerprint drive kind of thing, so that it was really easy, something that had happened at school activities. I didn't even get a chance to look it up, because I heard Newfane is where you go. So I'm a little bit worried about that being an equitable issue for families to travel and have to take that time. And then another thought, and I don't know if there's an answer here, but the concept of having like a permission slip where parents are okay with their friends' parents, like their neighbors and friends, if that might be a solution to get around specifically the volunteer driving situation. I think volunteers in the school does make sense. That's really it.
Rago have a hand up. Okay, Ellen.
Ellen, you're up.
Hi, sorry. It always takes me a minute to turn everything on. Yeah, I just want to, this worries me. I'm thinking about basketball season and the fact that there are no bus drivers after school. So I'm not sure if it's an equity issue. I don't know if there are schools that have bus drivers for after school sports teams. But I do know that, that my school does not. So please take that into consideration. Thanks.
So just to clarify, your motion is to adopt an amendment to the policy for a second reading period, correct?
I don't think it's a motion per se. I think it's just being presented for a second reading.
Okay.
A second 10-day warning period to garner all of these concerns and suggestions, right? And take it back to the policy committee.
One comment, actually two comments before we move on. One is, Michelle, the sheriff's office is moving from Newfane to the old DY building on the road to the dump. The transfer station. And so it will be more accessible. Just for context, this is the other point, just for context, the lawyer is saying, you're out of your ever-loving mind if you're even considering having individuals drive kids on their own, period. Doesn't matter whether they get background checks or not, because it's only going to take one incident for things to blow up.
Okay.
Recognizing that, that's going to be a real burden. Can we find a way to kind of ameliorate it a little, be a little flexible? And that's where the policy, that particular policy recommendation comes from. Yeah, it's got to be a burden, but it's also, it is mitigating some of the risk being identified by the.
So just to go back to Pietro Lynn's email to me as representative of the committee, he states, I strongly discourage volunteers driving students. And he presents the liability to the district in terms of allowing any volunteer to drive any student to an off-site event. The issue of parents driving students is somewhat of a different, it's on a different level. And we discussed this in the policy committee for a guardian to present a permission slip that allows another guardian to pick up their child. That's in a different category altogether. So again, Pietro Lynn is really very disturbed about a volunteer driving a student without this full background check.
Keith?
Just a quick, legally, I totally understand all of it. I think it's going to lead to some real challenges with actually providing buses for athletic events. Right now at BU 6, I think they struggle just to build buses for the middle high school games. And when you start kind of considering like Dummerston, Putney, sports, we're going to start getting into like the bus company being in a situation, which school do they provide a bus to for an away game? And we're going to end up canceling sporting events. That's just that's the reality, but I totally understand the legal part of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is surfacing this really urgent issue we have right now. We have a situation where we don't have buses to service our teams, struggling to fill the varsity schedule, and then JV and the middle schools. That's really significant. That's one piece. And then, yes, the parent drivers have just over the years, allowed those quick field trips to happen. And so we haven't burdened the bus company with some of those. So we're asking for buses for smaller field trips. And we have an urgent issue around busing that's affecting our programming on a lot of levels. Yeah.
Can I respond to that?
Please.
That came up in discussion, that buses do not exist. Drivers do not exist. And perhaps some schools have better access to buses than others do, raising an issue of equity. And this policy is looking to address that, not to negate volunteers driving students, but just asking that volunteers go through a full background check.
Okay. First, John?
Sure, thanks. I just have a clarifying question. Similar to Julianne being in a rural school, I have a question around the definition of a contracted service, where you say any trip over 20 miles must be through a contracted service. And I ask because at Putney Central, for example, we have a school van that's a 7-passenger van that we often use to transport small groups of students, sometimes on longer trips. Would that fall under the definition if it's driven by a staff member as a contracted service?
Mark, could you answer that?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So school personnel in a school vehicle would be considered a contracted.
So if we use the career center bus and a driver, it's similar to that situation.
Great.
And Sean Murphy?
Yeah, I totally understand this situation. I think it's a change. It's a historical change. When my students were in the district, we'd go to Putney and there'd be lines and lines of cars for the soccer that always happened in the fall. And, it had a tremendous sense of community. All the schools from the district and Chesterfield and all over, and everybody getting together. So I think the concern is really the change that seems mandated for safety. And I think it's very important to consider that. But I think it's also, we have to be cognizant of the fact that this change can change the atmosphere and the, which has historically been open. So I certainly understand the problem. And I certainly understand it specifically for Dummerston and Putney that have their own middle schools. I think it's a little easier to corral it at Brattleboro area middle school with Vernon, Guilford, and Brattleboro students. So that's just a comment.
Thank you, Sean.
I think the committee anticipated this discussion tonight. And I think the question on the table is, where do you draw the line? And how can you potentially create flexibility in year one to accommodate some of these challenges? I think it's really good feedback, and we'll talk about it on Tuesday afternoon.
So unless there's other discussion, the policy has been presented for a 10-day, a second 10-day, at least a 10-day reading period.
A second reading, 10-day reading period. I would ask that, I'm certainly going to go over the video for this particular meeting because every point is well considered. Please read the policy and commit your thoughts to an email. That would be very helpful for the policy committee.
Could you remind them when the next policy?
I'm sorry, the next policy meeting is on Tuesday, October 4th at 3 o'clock. The agenda has already been posted online.
Okay, so that move brings us to the administrative report. Mark?
Okay, I'm going to be fairly brief presentations tonight, which is great, or brief. First one, I've been able to share my own personal goals as superintendent with the SU board. And then the other night, I was able to do that with the Vernon board. So I figured I would do a quick summary for the SD board. And I brought hard copies, but I can also forward an electronic email. Essentially, goal number one, identifying the challenges of a very new leadership team and understanding that in order for us to be successful moving forward, we need to build systems for communication so that we're effectively, regularly collaborating with one another. And there's more details in the actual goals. I'll hand those out. Last year, we talked a lot about MTSS development and EST development as a supervisory union. Our goal last year was defining best practice. So this year, we're pivoting from best practice to implementation. And these are very much goals reflected in our recovery plan as well. Goal number 4, systematizing access to coaching, not only through the correct curriculum and assessment office, but also through the diversity, equity, and inclusion office, as well as identify ways in which those two offices systematically collaborate on a regular basis. And we're in the beginning stages of developing that. And then finally, exploring and implementing some level of peer observation as a tool to support really all of those goals, the 4 goals that we shared. So in the beginning stages of all of these, just wanted to share those with all 3 boards so that you have that information, and I'll forward a more detailed document after the meeting. We have Chris Overtree was hired by the school board last fall to do some climate work with us as a supervisory union. He has reached out, and we have done introductory meetings with all of our principals and directors as of last week. So we're in the beginning stages now of setting up individual school meetings with Chris to engage in that climate work with him. I can give an update on our website, which is getting closer and closer to a final product. Did a review today at central office. We still have some work to do with the greater admin team and feedback from individual school sites, but It's a lot more organized. I think the community's gonna really enjoy having access to information in a cleaner, organized way. Frank and Paul can certainly jump in here, but I think our goal is to, at some point next week, ask the board to identify some members who have the time to come down to central office to meet with our team as well as the company we hired, Rainstorm, to provide feedback on, first of all, how it looks and how the board tabs are looking and what you're looking for.
Thank you, Mark. Liz, you have the floor.
Hi, Mark. Are you gonna send the your whole your goals to everybody? Because I didn't receive them as a member of the SU board. So I'd really like to have them.
Yes, I will, Liz. I'll forward those tonight.
Thank you, Mark.
And then lastly, I'm happy to announce that we have developed a board agenda document that covers the 3 boards from September through June. Developed this document with the Curriculum Assessment Office, Frank's office, Special Ed office, assistance from Barb Nowakowski. I met with Michelle, David, and Carrie a couple weeks ago, asked for feedback. They gave me some feedback. I think we're at the point of a final draft, which is really exciting. Again, I will share that as well with all board members, so you have that information. But it's much needed information for us as an admin team to plan and prepare presentations, identify staff who can be a part of those presentations. So just give really thoughtful information to the board and the greater community on the work that we're undertaking. So excited about that. And that's where I'll leave it for now. And I know we have some presentations to engage in.
Thank you, Mark. And if that's it for administration, brings us to the fiscal report. Sean? Or
Yeah, I
Mr.
think it would fall on Frank's shoulders.
Sure, just a brief report. So we wrapped up the field work with our CPA auditors last week, and they were reviewing the fiscal year end results that I shared with the board in early September. So that's going well and on schedule. At the next board meeting, I assume we'll have a finance committee, as we usually do, first meeting of the month, and I will have a first quarter year to date financial statement that reflects our district budget through the end of September. We've started configuring the systems for budget development, and we'll be developing timelines and sharing that with the board fairly soon as well. That's it.
Thank you, Frank. Any questions? Okay. No questions. We'll move to new business then. The pre-K partnership agreements. I'm not sure who's in charge of that.
Essentially, those documents that I shared with you, Tim, that we need to sign off on.
Oh, okay. Do you want to say anything about them?
I can speak to them. These are the yearly contracts that we enter into with private pre-K providers as part of the publicly funded pre-K program. Providers receive some funds from WSESU for 10 hours of essentially free pre-K education to students, pre-K students, 3 and 4 year olds in our region. And we claim those students as part of our ADM, and that has a beneficial effect on budget.
Great. So the action needed was just Kelly and my signatures.
Sign the contracts.
Okay, we can move on then to the something I've been looking forward to, the Act 1 presentation from the high school. Cassie, you have the floor.
Yeah, so I'd like to introduce first my SAP at the high school, Ricky Davidson. He's well loved by everyone, and he works incredibly hard for our community in supporting our students and developing programs around supporting them and supporting staff and administration. I asked him to come tonight because Ricky was really implemental in designing our professional development for our opening days, which I think I shared with the board a few weeks ago, the presentation that he used with our staff working on, what is Act 1 and Aaron's Law and what are safe boundaries, and how do we develop those as a school and make sure that they're there so we can support our students as best as possible. In addition to that, he's also going to share our healthy relationships curriculum that we started using last year, and sort of the topics that covers, which does include, Act 1, and we may not call it that in talking with the students, but that's what it encompasses. So anyway.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Thank you.
So just to back up before this year a little bit, to give you a little history of where we were. Sometime during the 2020-21 school year, decisions were made around the fact that we should be doing something more to help our students have conversations around healthy relationships, communication styles, all of those kinds of things. And the call went out at the time, anybody who wants to work on this project, come together. So I'm a representative of that group, but I was not the only person on that group. There was faculty members, staff members, and students on that group. And we created a number of different things in spring of 21, including stuff related to National Sexual Assault Awareness Month and recognizing that as a school-wide thing, including, Wear Denim Day and the walkouts and those kinds of things. Right away. And then starting in the summer of 21, a group of us, faculty and staff, got together with folks from the Women's Freedom Center and with other experts to talk about creating a curriculum that would be used for the entire student body. And then how will we roll that out to the entire student body? So that's what we did over that summer. We did some work on that, put together a curriculum, and then last school year, sort of a school-wide push was done around all students. So it started with right away at the beginning of the school year with the trusted adult activity during advisory. So during advisory, students were asked right away in September of last school year to try to identify 5 trusted adults in the building that if they were in a crisis, or they had a question, or they had a concern, or they felt like they needed to go to somebody with something that was sensitive, who would they go to? And identify those adults. But in addition to that, it was put into our Power School system where administration and the counseling staff can see who those 5 trusted adults are, so that if a student was, say, in crisis or had an issue, and their social studies teacher is one of their trusted adults, I might not be that student's trusted adult, but that teacher might be teaching a class and that student may need that teacher at that moment. I can go cover a social studies class for a little while that teacher gets pulled to go help with that student and help that student deal with that issue. So we started with that right away at the beginning of last school year. And then we created a number of topics, and we didn't want to just put it all on advisory. So we asked core content teachers to take a class each month to teach one of these lessons. And we did work with those teachers around how to present that. So the topics were healthy versus unhealthy relationships, communicating effectively. That was one topic. Resolving conflicts and stepping in, how you do that was another topic. Boundaries and consent was another month. And then the last month was gender identity and gender expression. So the first month, math and science departments were asked to do that. Then English and social studies, then math and science again, then English and social studies. And then the same topics were repeated the next semester with the same departments, but asking where we gave them different activities to do. So even though the topic was the same, activities would be different. So if a student had science one semester and did a topic, the next semester, if they had math, they're not going to do the same exact thing they did before. Same topic, maybe same discussion points, but a different activity. So we created that for them. And that was a big part of last year. Also, as part of last year, we identified that there's other ways to group students together and have conversations and meet with them. So one of the school counselors and I met with all the athletic teams during the course of the school, during the beginning of the school year. We met with them individually, and we talked about healthy communication, consent, boundaries, those kinds of things with the student body as sports teams. We also met with the band and the chorus as two other large groups of students that meet regularly during the course of the school year, and might be some overlapping students, but we're sort of a core cohort of students to work together with. So we did those things last year. Then we also still recognized April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month and did some things and did some work related to that stuff. Then for this school year, to get more towards sort of the Act One and the staff training, last spring, I had some conversations with Chris Day, and he connected me with Julie Longchamp from the Vermont NEA, who apparently has done great trainings around this with staff. And so I had multiple conversations with her about how's the best way to do a training with our staff. And the decision there was made that she found that it was better to have staff trained within the building and then do small group trainings with the staff. So a number of us, 5 of us specifically, did training with her over the summer via Zoom. And then we put together a small group training with all of the faculty and staff, for all the faculty and staff. During the first PD day, one of the first PD days before the school year started, we met with the certified staff, so the faculty members and certified staff, and we did the first half of the training, and that was part of the slide presentation that Cassie sent out to all of the board members 2 weeks ago. It was part of that. We did the first half of that training with them in small group conversations and discussions. And a lot of that was based around the relatively new Vermont State Code of Ethics for faculty members, which actually a commission was put together in 2017 to look at and creating a code of ethics for the first time for faculty, for teachers. And the training was based on that. What came from that and that model code of ethics. We did that with a planned another PD day to look specifically at boundaries, looking at verbal boundaries, physical boundaries, emotional boundaries, and all of those things, faculty to faculty, faculty to students, those kinds of things. So that'll be a coming up one. And then we're also going to do both sets of those trainings. The core group of the 5 of us that did the training with Julie Longchamp are going to do both groups of those trainings with all of the non-certified staff also during the course of this school year. So we're going to look at the paras, the administrative staff, the custodial staff, basically anybody else that's in the building who hasn't done it will do it during those times. In addition to all of that, and I know that was a lot and I talked really fast and I apologize if I went really quick, but I don't want to take too much of your time. In addition to that, the Healthy Relationships Committee, which is made up of faculty, staff, and students, our administrative kind of lead was Chris Day. With Chris Day not being here, Tracy Lane is going to take that on. So I've met with Tracy and kind of brought her up to speed with the history, a little bit more in depth than what I'm sharing with all of you tonight. And we lost some of our students because they graduated that were part of that committee because they graduated, they've moved on. So we only have one returning student that was part of that committee. So that student and I are helping to recruit some more students to be part of that. And we're going to be reconvening as the Healthy Relationships Committee to look at where have we been, what have we done, and what are the things and I tried to work with what's the things we need to identify to do next. What are the next things to do? What are the next places that we need to put some time, effort, and focus? And then that's the goal for this year, is to identify those things and start doing that stuff. All right, that was a lot really fast. So I also want to be cognizant you all may have questions, and I'm happy to do my best to answer questions. And if not, I will get back to you with an answer, I promise. I tell my students that all the time, so they know I'll do that, and I will do that with you too. So.
And I also wanted to add, having this healthy relationships curriculum and schedule out there, now as we move towards having that dialogue in regards to the investigation, this is, for me, feels like the trauma-informed way to go about having those challenging conversations. Because I think it's got to be in that intimate setting where students feel comfortable sharing, that important information. So yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I feel like that is the elephant in the room when we talk about Act One, and it feels remiss to talk about this without mentioning the investigation. So I'm curious to know, how will you measure success, and how will you get feedback from students, faculty about the process?
Well, we have especially during COVID, I think we did a lot of surveys to kind of get an idea of what people were getting out of what we were doing. And as much as we kind of got a little surveyed out, I think during COVID, I think we've stepped away from that a little bit enough. So that will be definitely one of the ways. One of the other ways too that I think I look at is like the trusted adult piece that I talked about that we studied last year. We repeated that this fall. And this is going to sound strange, but somebody has to enter all that data from pieces of paper into the computer. So this is the second year and I'm doing all that data entry. So I'm the only one that's seeing everybody's stuff when I'm doing that data entry. And as part of that, what I'm noticing is that students that were like ninth graders last year who felt like they didn't know a lot of adults in the building and didn't feel comfortable, what we have said to the new students last year and this year is that, well, you have a house administrator, you have a school counselor, and you have an advisor. Those could be three of your adults until you're ready to make a change. And some students this year I've noticed made changes, and some of them made wholesale changes because they've connected with adults in a different way that they feel more safe with and more comfortable with. And I see that as a part of a success, that the second time that they do it, they're making some change and making connections in a different kind of a way. And I would say it's probably balanced, that there's almost as many students that are keeping all of those adults because that connection is solid for them and has stayed solid as we've gone a year ahead. I think that's part of the success too, and how we'll know that.
And I think too, we have a great faculty council that I feel like I can collaborate with on sort of getting their feedback in terms of how they feel like that, how easy it is to like implement this curriculum. In addition to that, we have student groups, like the Student Advisory Council, and there's a school improvement advisory that I'm starting to meet with once a week. Tomorrow we have our first meeting, but those are places where I can again ask for the feedback to sort of recognize, if shifts need to be made or there feels like there's a need not being met. So I really rely on that sort of collaboration to know that these things are working.
And hopefully Kaya's comment that a lot of the students, or at least the students that you've talked to in that group, really didn't know about the investigation like that. Hopefully that ties into the conversation.
Yeah, I think it has to. And I will say, I have had students come and talk to me about it and ask and want to know. And, I always try and be as transparent as I possibly can with students, because I feel like that's important, that they can trust in me to be that way. So it's ongoing work that we'll continue to do.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much, Cassie and Rick. It was very enlightening.
And I think Mark did share the link to that training in his communication with families today, just so I know it's a lot of slides because it was a whole half day of training. So if the public wants to look at that, it's available.
Okay, thank you so much. I apologize to Michelle Green. I skipped over the motion that we passed to add to unfinished business. But let's get to summer camp enrichment presentation, and then we'll get back to Michelle. So the summer camp enrichment presentation is that you, Paul?
Chris. Technology update.
So Chris is a teacher at the middle school. And this summer, he served as the administrator essentially to our summer camp program, which was essentially year 2 of a change in how we went about providing summer programs. Last summer, coming off of a school year of COVID and lots of shutdowns, we really pivoted our program to shift from a sole focus on tutoring to engaging enrichment activities. And we saw a lot of benefits of that last summer, a lot of positive feedback. with that approach. So that's how we approached this past summer as well. And I'll turn it over to Chris and Bryn, who served as a mentor to Chris.
Thank you. So a goal of our presentation tonight is just to kind of give you an overview of what our summer program looked like. And to just kind of fill you in on how it met the needs of our community. And to give you some highlights from the summer as well, with a lot of fun pictures here. So a little background on our summer camp. It ran the whole entire month of July. We held two-week sessions, roughly around 200 campers that were rising first to sixth graders. We held this camp at the Winston Prouty campus for the second year, and all WSESD schools were involved, except that Putney did host their own at the Putney school. And so I just kind of want to give you a day in the life of what a camper was involved in. So each morning they arrived right around 8:45. Started to arrive a little bit earlier as the weeks went on because they loved it so much, I think. Or parents just wanted to drop them off earlier. We had breakfast, so good information. They were served breakfast every day. They were served lunch every day, and there were snacks throughout the day. So they'd get there, they'd have breakfast, they'd be greeted by their pods, and pods were created based on the grade level or as close to the grade level as we could. There were about 12 to 15 kids within a pod. We would have a morning pod meeting. That was then led into a full camp meeting where we gave some announcements. We played full camp games. And a lot of the feedback was that students really enjoyed that time in the morning to just see all the kids and all the grades and all the staff together. That was one of the best parts of the day. And then the morning time was split up into 3 different sections. Each pod had an academic time of about 40 to 45 minutes where we focused on math and ELA skills. These were led by classroom teachers within our district, and they would do fun games with them and just really harness those skills so that they weren't lost throughout the summer. Then another 40 to 45 minute chunk was for the pods to kind of figure out what they wanted to do. What were the needs of the students? And the amazing thing about the Winston Prouty campus is we're surrounded by woods. So kids were able to just get back to the nature of the beast and just run around and be free and explore in the woods with their fellow peers throughout the day. And it was just an amazing opportunity for teachers to, or people that were leading the pods to really engage back with maybe a little bit outside the realm of what they might teach in the building to what are some fun activities that I grew up with in my own life, or what were some really fun activities that I've learned about that I can really harness in a summer camp environment. So this allowed teachers to really step out of their box of teacher in a school to just find that love again to work with these younger kids. And then the last kind of 40 to 45 minute chunk in the morning, each pod was able to go experience a different activity that was led by someone else. So session 1, Tom Yanner, who works at Oak Grove, led a juggling session each day for all the pods. And for 2 weeks, kids got to develop their skills, try juggling for the first time ever, and it was such an awesome experience for them. Session 2, Ellen Nam came out and did a lot of gardening opportunities, made some really cool different types of foods, and just opened students' eyes to just new things that they had never seen before. And then Deb Patno created a maker space for us, which involved so many different art projects, different ideas that other staff threw at her. And she's like, yeah, let's do it. So you'll see some pictures coming up that just kind of highlights all the different things that students were able to do in the morning. And that led us into the afternoon time where we divided the time into 2 different sections. Each day, students had the opportunity to go to the Brattleboro pool, which was an amazing experience where they were able to walk there. We also utilized a bus from the Career Center that we were able to go back and forth with. And then if they weren't going to the pool that day, then we created a massive slip and slide down that big hill at Winston Prouty, which was just I've never seen more excitement in my entire life. I've also never gotten more soaked in my entire life from kids running around. And then if they weren't doing pool or slip inside, then they were finding more pod time, going into the woods, doing smaller games, connecting with different pods as well, to allow that collaboration, which was really nice. And then they departed right around 3 o'clock each day, with students that needed bus being able to get busing or parents coming to pick them up.
I think it's important to highlight here too, Chris, that there was no cost to families. So the transportation, the food, the pool, all of the activities was totally absorbed by the district to really give all students that opportunity to participate in the summer camp experience.
So what you'll notice is just some pictures here scattered in. This is Tom going over some juggling techniques. And then one of the coolest things I think that we were able to offer, we got a lot of book donations from all of our elementary schools. And every single Friday of camp, kids got to come into our quote unquote library and take whatever books they wanted to home. So there were kids with like 10 books at a time. There were kids with 2 books, you know, not sure how parents reacted, but no, you can't ever have too many books, right? So that was really cool. So once again, students either got to be going to the Brattleboro pool, which they absolutely loved, or we launched them down a giant slip and slide because it was a warm summer and it was just a blast. On the left, you'll notice that's our makerspace or part of it. It really expanded about half of the gym with like 8 different sections of different activities. So here there's a lot of yarn and scissors and paper. We had a lot of beads. It was just like a really great opportunity for kids to feel settled in their space and just find their creativity. And then on the right, that we actually on the Winston Prouty campus, there's a little pond if you hike up to the top. And so we brought nets and kids were able to catch frogs, as we see. We did lose one shoe. I tried to go and after it. I couldn't find it. There's picture evidence, but we didn't put it in here. It's a good thing. Another opportunity here to just really highlight how amazing of an opportunity it was for not just our students, but our staff to reconnect with the love they have of education. I think a lot of the feedback has been, man, I'm feeling really burnt out from the grind every single day going to school. And so the feedback from staff was just, this really showed the love that we have again for education, for working with our students, and why we got into it in the first place. Because it is a tall task. It's not a big ask to have teachers and staff from our schools to come do an extra 4 weeks over the summer. And I was really nervous about that. This was my first year doing this. So I didn't know what to expect. But I know that by the end of the 4 weeks, even by the end of the 2, because some staff just did 2, not 4, the feedback was, wow, I really feel empowered again. I really feel motivated again to get back in my classroom, even right at the beginning of August, which was a really, really great thing to hear.
I had one teacher say to me, I have been so burnt out and I feel so reinvigorated. And I said, you worked 4 weeks of your vacation. And she said, it was worth every minute. I feel so reinvigorated in my practice.
It's really nice. So this is Ellen doing her thing here, making a little pesto with the kids. Then we had some more juggling. This is part of our makerspace. There was a weird obsession with cups at the camp. One day someone just brought cups in and the staffing just commenced and they just really went for it. Some days we're a little out of control, but it's okay. Once again, here, our slip and slide. And then we really wanted to feel this transformation of the program. It had gone, as Mark had said, from a really academically driven camp in the past to something that was more equitable and inviting for all students. We knew that keeping the academic piece was essential because we know how important it is for those skills to be practiced throughout. But we also knew that kids need to be kids and they need to love coming together. And a big piece that they missed out on was that whole social piece with other peers. And I think this camp just is the perfect reflection on why something like this is so incredible for our community and our district, because these kids came from all of the surrounding schools and they were able to connect with peers that they knew from school, from different schools, just run around and be crazy in a really safe environment. And it was just an incredible experience. One of the coolest pieces was we were fully, there's full inclusion at camp the first 2 weeks, and we'll get to this in a minute, included special ed students throughout the district as well. And yeah, we were up on the Winston Prouty campus and we went to the pool. So what we've also done is just included some quotes. So we sent out surveys to both staff that worked the camp and families that attended the camp. So some of the quotes you're going to see are feedback from families that responded to this survey. Scattered in with more pictures here. Really enjoyed camp, having teachers and friends from school. This is one of the best. So what we were really excited about was how we were able to have full inclusion at camp. So we had Kirsten, last name, Kenny, thank you so much, lead our program at camp. And for the first full 2 weeks, we had about 8 intensive service students at camp that were able to participate in every single activity that we offer, to the point in which they wanted to be a part of it, right? So they had their own space as well, for when they needed to get away for a little bit, but they were in touch with the pod leaders. They were involved with getting to the pool and going swimming each day. You'll see a picture really soon. Next to the slip and slide, we also had a sprinkler going, just in case you didn't want to slide down, but you still wanted to get a little water action. Yeah, as you see right here, right? So it's just a great opportunity for all kids in our district to be part of this experience. Wonderful time, second year going. A lot of feedback was they came with smiles and left with smiles. There were tears at pickup on the last day because they didn't want camp to be over.
Story about that too, Chris, if I could add. One day I was there and there was a student who was nonverbal, and a kid in the pod was asking the assistant, how come the student's not speaking to me? And the assistant said, the student actually can communicate. This is the tool that they use to communicate. And all of the kids were like, wow, can we learn to use that tool also? And it was such a moment of, like you were saying, Chris, just such full inclusion of the kids being together. And the staff who was supporting that process was so dynamite. There was a day where we had a challenge getting a student on a bus to get down to the pool. And Kirsten said, that's no problem. I'll just take them down in the stroller. And I said, but the hill on the way back, she's like, that's fine. I got it. You know, so the flexibility that everyone showed to really make that possible was the most amazing model of inclusion I think I've seen.
Yeah. This is just another example of Tom's juggling. So it wasn't just juggling, it was a couple of the other activities as well. Some more pool pics here. And then we asked for some staff reflection about what they enjoyed about camp. Getting to know staff within our district and make new friends, gaining relationships with many of the kiddos that will be in my classroom this year, making memories with the kiddos and with my own kids, everything. And one thing just from my perspective was I work at BAM, so I don't have really any opportunity to connect and work with the elementary teachers. So when I was performing the task to prepare for the summer, I would just kind of see names on a paper. I didn't actually know who they were. I would just get feedback from Bryn or Morgan O'Brien, who was helping me as well, and Deb Cardane at the time. And then I showed up to camp and it was just flawless how incredible the staff was at camp, meeting them, growing these relationships. It was just a really cool reflection on my own ability to learn and meet and see how awesome they are at all levels. And then we just kind of gave you a snapshot of some survey questions we had. So the day-to-day running of camp operations was generally smooth. As you can see, all in the top half of the responses here.
Yeah, the scale here was 4 was strongly agree and 1 was strongly disagree.
That was staff reflection. Yeah, that was a staff reflection. Once again, staff on the schedule. So the schedule was flexible enough to have success with the children I worked with. A lot of feedback from year 1 to year 2 was about how they would like the opportunity to just provide activities that they want to do, or to poll the students on a day-to-day basis and say, hey, what are your needs? What do you want to do? And so to allow them that flexibility, say you get an hour and a half every single day to be with your pods, to do fun activities, and just let them be kids. One thing that I really enjoyed with Tom was kind of at the end of each section, he created like a stage environment, and each kid got to go up in front of the rest of their pod and perform a little activity or stunt with something that they had learned from his activity. So that was really nice to be able to put them on that spot and feel like they were in that spotlight a little bit. The support, this is feedback a bit about support from the staff. So communication and support during camp was adequate to help deal with any issues that arose. So pretty good responses here. And families responded by saying it was 2 weeks of consistent full day care, bus routes for those who needed it, and the referral process through the sending schools made it really, really successful. So this is a child's experience based on family responses. Awesome and pretty good. This is up by the ponds. And then kind of the top 4 favorite parts of camp. So I think everyone can agree the pool's a pretty awesome spot. Making new friends was a huge piece of it in that social aspect. The time with their pod and the academic games. We had 4 awesome academic leaders, 2 for the younger pods and 2 for the older pods. And each day they just created such a fun environment where your expectation is, wow, this is summer camp. What kids are going to not want to be there? Or am I ready to make a move if a kid starts running? Never once. They just, even the toughest kids at camp, when they heard academic time, they were like, all right, this is a settled moment. I'm just going to walk over there. I'm going to sit at this table. I'm going to play a card game right now with math. So that was just it was a really cool thing to see.
This is an example of one of the academic centers for first graders, I believe.
Yeah. Made new friends, wanted to stay longer, play for more time. When it was time to go home, she loved camp. There's 100 of these if you want to send to you. Brent, I couldn't stop looking at these pictures the other day. One of the pods created this space in the woods that each day they had pod time could go up to. And these were just kind of their name tags that they got to create. And it was just this visual as you walked up, you got to kind of like walk through them. And then it opened up into this whole area where they're just like making mud pies. They're like building forts out of sticks and just really working together. There it is again, I love it. Yeah.
That piece of that connection still to the school community. When kids are out of school for 8-9 weeks, it is a really nice touch point for kids and for families to be able to reconnect in that way.
So it's always important to think long-term and really be thinking ahead. Some of the things is just continuing to gather support for the continuation of this program. I can't say enough how important this is for our community and the students that we are able to offer this to. Thinking about where we want to house this, Winston Prouty is an incredible location. It offers this ability to take students away from their school setting and offer this environment that, yes, there's still academics, but it's a really good camp feel with teachers included there. And that I think is one of the biggest highlights. Obviously, we have to create that partnership or continued partnership with Winston Prouty and fine tune the details, but over 2 years, it's been very successful. We want to continue to just think about streamlining our systems for enrollment. Each school took on a big piece of that, but I do know that there's a lot more things that we can do even better, and so we'll be brainstorming those. And then one thing that I ran into this year was just trying to get the range of recruitment out to not just like certified staff and pairs, but to all, like the pairs or the subs that come in every day that are already within our system. Actually provided some of the best leadership at camp. So just making sure that all parties that want to be included get to be included. There's one thing I want to say and I already forgot. What did I want to say?
I want to give a shout out to Deb Cardane, who really helped envision this program when it started 2 years ago and did all of the legwork. I started this new job the day camp started, so that was easy to walk into. And also Morgan O'Brien, who did an incredible job. Isabel Higgins-Long was our admin support at the camp, who did an amazing job too. And there were so many people that came together. I think another highlight that I want to mention too is that all students were invited regardless of supports needed. And in the past, that's not always been the case for some of our academic camps. If a student had a heavy behavioral needs, we didn't have capacity necessarily to support that. It was really exciting to see every student who wanted to attend have the ability to attend this camp. It truly was equitable access for all kids.
That's what I wanted to say, actually. No, I'm glad. Yeah.
I'll just add as well, we had principals visiting on a regular basis as well. So administration was there throughout the summer, checking in on their kids, providing support to Chris. So it was a real collective effort. And I think next steps is to continue to learn. And how do we make it bigger and better moving forward?
Yeah.
It sounds like all schools in the SU were participating in this. That's fantastic.
Also 6 and then John.
John's going to present a little bit about the funding program too.
But Central School summer program.
Oh, yes.
There's everyone.
There's
John, you want to talk about Putney and then we can.
Sure. Yeah, so I can speak a little bit to our Putney Central School summer camp. So one of the things that I did as soon as I was hired at the school, Putney Central School, was to connect with our community, the community in Putney around their sort of hopes and values and what matters to them from a school perspective. And probably the single most resounding message from that process for me was the pride and history of the Putney Central School summer program, which has a really long history of Putney Central School. It's been really in-depth, creative, engaging summer program that had not been happening for a couple of years. And so it was a strong wish for the community to bring back Putney Central School specific summer program. So in May, we started planning for a camp for the summer, which was quite a quick turnaround, but the community in Putney in general and within the PCS staff really rallied. And as well as our central office staff, which was incredibly supportive of being on this camp. And we had 2 really great weeks of summer camp. The first 2 weeks of August, we had about 100 camp participants, which represents about 50% of our student body, which was a really high level of participation. Really great. Some students came for 1 week, some came for both. I was really happy that we were able to provide this opportunity. So we followed a similar sort of framework to the district camp. Mornings consisted of, students would get there, we would feed them all breakfast. And then students signed up for different themed morning themed camps. And so some of those camps included mountain biking camp, there was fishing camp, there was chess camp, crafting, nature exploration, wilderness, modern band with our music teacher. I taught a beginner biking camp. There was chorus camp and different sort of themed groups that students would sign up for based on their own particular interests. We also had tutoring there with our Putney Central School academic support teachers, did some work with students throughout the time there. And then the afternoons, students would go to the Putney Town Pool, which is right on our school campus. And so it was a really nice opportunity to take advantage of the grounds at Putney Central School, which connects to the Forest for Learning, which is about 200 acres of forested land right on our school campus, as well as the Putney Town Pool, which is right there. So we have a sort of close working relationship with that town pool. And it was great. The people running camps were both community members and Putney Central School staff. So it was a really nice way to engage folks from the broader Putney community to lead groups and connect with students. Many of whom had done PCS summer camps in years past, and we're excited that this opportunity was sort of brought back. Let's see, we provided transportation with our school van. So Amy Holding and I were sort of driving laps around a lot of times. We're picking up and dropping off students and connecting with families. And we had a great time. You know, here's a picture of my beginner biking club that started with 8 non-riders, and there we are biking down Sand Hill Road in Putney, which was sort of the last day of excursion. There's some quotes from families. The resounding message, similar to the rest of the district camp, was it was just a way to sort of build such excitement and positivity connecting to a school community in a way that people had felt was missing. They were so excited to be there. And it was sort of a great reset for the teachers who were able to be a part of camp. It was a really positive experience for everybody. For me personally, it was a really great way to start to get involved in the Putney Central School community and get to know students and families as a new principal in the community. It was,
Yeah, John, I'd say that would be quite an introduction to your.
yeah, it was great. Great. These guys were talking about, we have some future planning. One is to, continue to sort of recommit ourselves to finding grant funding to allow the continuation of summer camp for years to come. Previous summers, I was looking at sort of menus of options, and Putney summer camps that run for 6 or 8 weeks throughout the summer with a lot of different options. It's been quite a thorough program in years past. It's been some time since it's been at that level, but so continuing to look at opportunities to be able to continue that level of programming. Also, we're working on sort of developing a school enrichment, after school enrichment program, and there's a bridge between regular school year enrichment programming in summer school and continuing to sort of look at what that bridge is and how to tie those two opportunities together to support kids in our Putney community. And then again, looking at further involving Putney community partners. As is true in all towns in our district, there's a really strong interest in Putney Central School on the greater Putney community. And I found that the summer program is a really great way to sort of bring members of our community into the school and give them a role within our school community. Continuing to look for opportunities for that to really make PCS sort of a community-based school, which is that we really value. Yeah.
These programs have been funded by the ESSER funding, very much supports recovery plan goals. And as we look ahead, as John is saying, we need to look at how we transition back to the local budgets and sustain it.
Hey, Jackie?
I just had a quick question, Sean. That was fabulous, by the way. I was just curious, did the Putney food service staff feed the kids or the cafe services?
They did not. So we worked with cafe services who would deliver food in the morning, breakfast and lunch. Yep. So it was sort of a partner with Alley West and cafe services. Yeah. So our traditional food service staff did not work.
Some people like it, some not.
So terrific presentations. Thank you very much. Liz, go ahead.
I wanted to thank you all, and it was a pleasure to hear about how this went. I was sitting here smiling online because of the fun that you generated. And I think we often miss that in education, making it fun. And I know that John Sessions scrambled to get Putney's camp up and running. And so I want to shout out to him. But thank you very much.
Okay, Sean.
Yeah, I would just like to say that Chris, Bryn, Ricky, Cassie, John, this was so uplifting. All the presentations, so it just makes me feel great. We're a good district.
Okay, the final agenda item, Michelle.
Sorry to keep everyone for another minute. In early July, I began notifying the chair of our board of concerns of ethical misconduct, and I asked to meet and address them. On July 23rd, I followed up and asked for a timeline on, quote, when I might receive a response to the notifications of my concerns of violation of our code of ethics, and formally requested a meeting together with our attorney. I again followed up on August 5th and then on August 7th, repeating the same. On August 9th, I definitively was clear I'm reporting to you as the chair to take up my concerns regarding our board possibly being in violation of our code of ethics as I understand them. On August 12th, I was told to specify them in writing, and I explained I had been counseled not to do that and seek clarity and misunderstanding first. I made another report on August 15th stating most recent specific concerns, and then I followed up again with detailed examples and sentiment on September 14th. And so at this time, the chair has not responded to my concerns or taken any action to address them. And so what is indicated at this point for me as a board member, the appropriate next step would be that I take my concerns to the entire board and we could take them up together. So I'm requesting that the topic concerns related to code of ethics be added to our next agenda scheduled for October 11th with ample time reserved for discussion. And I'd also request the presence of our attorney so that we might have guidance in the event of differing viewpoints.
Your request is heard. I'm not sure that this can be a motion because the agenda is set by the chair in collaboration with the superintendent. But your request has been heard. Are there any comments? Okay, so thank you, Michelle. And Anne, do you have one final motion?
Mr. Acting Chair, there being no further business before this board, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.